So, my dear friends, Bhagavad-gita as it is, with the comments of Acharya Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. And today we're continuing to read the chapter number 15th, Purushottama Yoga, the Supreme Personality Yoga. So, we have read up until now 5 texts, 5 verses, where figuratively the imagination or presentation of the material world is described. It is described here, it is compared here as a banyan tree. The banyan tree is having a very perplexed structure, a lot of roots, a lot of branches. It's a gigantic tree that grows in a very big area, and it's really hard to understand the beginning of this plant. Sometimes even the roots actually dying, but you still cannot find the initial roots of this tree. So it's a very gigantic universal tree. And in addition, the roots are actually growing upwards, but the branches are growing downwards. So the picture is really hard to understand for the material world. But this analogy helps to understand at least some presentations about this universe, about this material world as scientists. Just like modern people that want to travel into the space, and as it turns out, it's just almost not possible to understand. But here, there's a very interesting point of view is given, with help of which we can understand the structure of this world, the way it functions. So in the third and fourth texts, it says that no one can understand this shape of a tree. No one can see it in the material world. No one knows whether its beginning is, where its end is, and its basis. But using another point of view, you can actually realize what it is with the help of renunciation. You can renounce all this perplexity of the material existence to unbundle these karma perplexions. So it is impossible for a person, but it is possible with help of renunciation to get rid of this perplexion. So perplexion here is compared with an axe, but material existence with a tree. So you can use an axe to cut down this tree. And in the fifth text that we stopped at last time, it is said about this root. Those who are free from false prestige, ahankara, it's called in Sanskrit, it's called false prestige, false pride. Well, in Russian language, we usually use this word as something not beneficial, something artificial. So in Sanskrit, it means ahankara. It means false me, false myself. And also it says that there are all possible illusions based on this false prestige and false association, illusional connections, the material lust, the love of a genuine me, of a genuine soul, it actually converted into lust here in the material world. So the desires to enjoy in this world separately from God. I'm not God, but I'm trying to be God in material world. This is called ahankara. We think ourselves to be enjoyers. I want to enjoy this world. I want to control this world. So this whole civilization is materially moving in this world using the false ego, false me. And the world is designed in a way that it can be considered with the point of view not as a space, but as a relationships with God. That's how you can understand the structure of this universe. So when person, the more lust a person have, the more passionate he is to perform his activities, the further he is from the spiritual world, where there is no loss, when there is no false ego, where all the living entities they have the genuine selves. And the more this person, the deeper this person goes into this self-identification, the farther he goes away from the spiritual world, using the laws of karma. Well, I think you've seen when a boat is not tied up to the shore, it will be taken away into the river. It will get loosened. So in Gita says that even just one desire, one wish, it gets a person attached to the object of his desire. It's like a wind blowing fiercely and taking you away into the ocean. So that's how we get confused. We lose our genuine path. And the wind of desires are moving the living entities. It influences our mind. The mind gets agitated. It converts to reality. It starts battling the illusion, categories like enemy and friend. It starts understanding that the whole universe is actually like an enemy. And no one actually wants to understand that first of all we have to harness our desires. We have to find the shelter in the true knowledge. So when a person gets the shelter in a knowledge, then his existence is compared not with the boat, but with the real big ship. When there's a captain, the command, everything is organized, and that's when we have a chance to get across this ocean of the material existence. So these material desires are compared with an ocean. So that's what kind of a presentation of a material universe is given here. On this lust and greediness and angry, anger. So these levels are different. We can't even imagine it living here on Earth. There are some elevated levels, lower levels, and we are in the middle level. So in lower levels, there's more lust, and the higher you go from the Earth, higher up, the less lust there is. So here we have this, different proportions. We're just fighting. Sometimes good takes over, sometimes bad takes over. But in the lower planetary systems, bad things they're taking over. More lust, more greediness, more enviness. And there are some very low levels where there are some very evil living beings are living. They're very powerful, they're fighting. So they have some special siddhas. And if you go even deeper, if you lower, so those planets are existing only to punish someone, only for punishing. So the lower you go, the more hellish these planets are. So the higher you go, the more heaven-like these planets become, like paradise. So the level of consciousness development is very high. But anyway, this is the area of matter. It's not yet the spiritual level. So with this perspective, we can even partially understand how the universe is working. We cannot calculate the distance to get to these planets. These categories are not working here. We won't have even enough time to get across such distances, even the imagination to imagine all these things. And in this chapter, in the sixth chapter, it says that it says something about the abode that we can reach, getting rid of lust and greediness. So it says here that there's a spiritual abode where there is no lust, no greediness and anger, no gunas. The world is pure. The spiritual world is absolutely pure. So that supreme abode of mine is not illuminated by the sun or moon, nor by fire or electricity. Those who reach it never return to this material world. So here in the text, in Sanskrit, well, probably you will not find this word meaning electricity. Of course, this notion has always existed, and people have always known about it. Well, probably we don't have to be talking about electrification because there was no need for that. The lives of people were connected not with electricity but with sun. There are dynasties of moon and sun, and of course they're directly connected to us. So that there's this fire of sun that awakens the wisdom, intelligence. So it's very useful to understand, to realize what space is, what time is, to support the life. There is prana in there, there is food for thought. So the sun energy cannot be compared to anything else. This is unique. And there are some other types of fire. So moon is already a reflected light and it's cold. But anyway, moon gives us food, juice, juice to the vegetables, to the plants. So it's also considered to be a father of living entities because we also eat these plants, these grains, vegetables. The moon also gives us power to feelings and intelligence. So it's also extremely powerful and it's also extremely useful for the development of our civilizations. So now, meantime, we're only examining the phases of moon, day phases, and then we're also trying to examine what the sun is, its structure. But in terms of the relationships with all these celestial bodies, we practically know nothing about them. We only know the shallow information. So there's also an earth fire. So it's not as powerful as the sun's energy, but still. So we get this fire here just because we have woods in here and it accumulates the sun's energy. So it has some elements of sun, the coal as well. It's all the accumulation of sun's energy. But it already has a different quality. It doesn't it's not that powerful. We can cook some food using these elements. And the best fire quality is using the excrements of cow. So there can be different types of fire, pure, not pure. So if you've ever been to cremation, it's considered to be that you get dirty because of this fire and vapor, but sacrificial fire is considered to be sacred. There's also a fire in a living entity's body that keeps the temperature. So there's fire in all the elements of this material world. Well, coldness is also a temperature, so it's another aspect of fire. Well, so for example, if you got a cold, a burn from fire, and when you get really cold, like cold sores, the symptoms are the same. The cow manure is supposed to be in the mode of goodness. And the fire from woods, there are some raw woods, there are some dried up woods, and the fire's quality will be different. And the electrical fire takes the last place here. It's the lowest rank, actually. It's not desirable to use it. So the best fire is on the cow manure, So we're talking about fire right now, but in the abode of the spiritual world, there's no such notion as fire. Because the fire, out of all the material elements, so we depend on it the most here on this level. So we get this source of energy from oil and nuclear energy. So the fire element is the most active one. It's very active. So a lot of civilizations, they used to worship sun, the fire worshippers, but in the spiritual world, everything has energy. So there's no this innovative energy, so there's no need for fire, electricity, woods, any kind of fuel. Everything is filled with this special light. So here fire can actually destroy things like a flame. This flame eats everything, converting everything to ash. But there's also a fire of knowledge that externally or visually does not destroy anything, but it destroys some subtle things like karma. And this is also an element of fire, so this knowledge is compared to fire. So this consciousness is the most active element of fire. It's even more powerful than fire. Consciousness does not burn in fire, it says. So fire is the lowest energy, but for the material body, the fire is very dangerous. It can burn the body. If we cook something, we have to protect ourselves. We have to protect the house. But anyway, we use the fire. We can tolerate even all these vapors and fumes, but still we use it. The electricity confuses a person's intelligence. And the fire is considered to be the lowest kind of energy. So let's just not go too deep into the details of physics. Let's go next. Text number 7. The living entities in these conditioned worlds are my eternal fragmental parts. Due to conditioned life, they are struggling very hard with the 6 senses, which include the mind. So in the 4th chapter of Bhagavad-gita, we've already read it. It's called the Transcendental Knowledge. It says that having received the spiritual knowledge, we can see that. We can see that all living beings are parts of God. But if they are these particles, so why can't they see this connection with God, this association with God? It says here they are separated. They're separated with help of illusion. They're separated with the help of illusion. They do not see God. They do not perceive God because of the illusion. Well, of course, they might even see God, but they cannot see Him. Even if they see God in a bodily form, they will not recognize Him. So how can they recognize Him? Even they might have some characteristics, but they will not be able to recognize God in the human body. But the God's body, when it came down to this planet, it doesn't have all these vascular systems, bones, muscles. So this is called a separated energy of God. Blood and organs of perception. This is just the external energy organized in the physical body, so that a soul can use the eyes, the ears, and touch, the bones. But this is all called Bhina Prakriti, separated energy. So this material energy is called Bhina Prakriti, separated energy. That is not Krishna. Well, this is kind of Krishna and not Krishna at the same time. So Prabhupada used to say that a cow and milk. Milk is a separated energy of God. But this is not a cow anymore, but anyway, it's connected to the cow. There can't be any milk without a cow. So it was separated, but still it is the same. It remains to be part of it, but it's still separated. So there's an example, a husband and a wife, they're living in just one place, but then suddenly they want to get divorced. And there's no other place to live in, and they continue living in one place. So it's like they're connected with the same lifestyle, but they're not considered to be a wife and a husband anymore. So this is still kind of these relationships of a husband and a wife, but it's already different. So there more lust, envy, and greed, the more separation there is. So these three qualities. So it it gets a living entity blind. If you see a stone, what is a stone? Let's take a look at it from another perspective. Of course, it's a combination of these gross elements, but if you take a look at it in the point of view of evolution, so this is the maximal manifestation of greediness, lust, and desire. So we're trying to explain these things from the point of view of life. God can take this stone, can hold it for some time, but still it remains to be a stone. You can see God. Even if you're able to see God, you will not understand anything. You can even see the sun, the moon, the mountains. You see a lot of living entities all around you, and still you can't understand anything. So this is a separated illusional consciousness. So what do I see? Only myself and all I want. But what another person wants, I don't understand. It is said that I'm like in a helmet of this body. I'm being restricted by everything. A soul is given eyes, imagine it, blinking. We're also given these ears, and I'm so happy about it. Wow, I have ears. But matter of fact, I am actually punished by this physical body that is going through a lot of sufferings all the time. So in order to get something to support this physical body, you have to work a lot. And you see, we think of ourselves to be perfect. And also it says the living entity, this material world, carries his different conceptions of life from one body to another. And due to conditioned life, they're struggling very hard with the six senses, which include the mind. So this is the most complicated thing here. So in a structure, in the way our bodies are constructed, so the biggest problem that I have inside is the problem with my own mind. It's both my friend and my enemy, over-conditioned. So if it's under control, this is the best friend. If it's at the transcendental condition, it can show you so much. Just a very even surface of a lake, but there's no lust, there's no greediness and envy. It can show you this outstanding picture. But if the mind is not controlled, this is the greatest enemy. It's lying all the time. So it's doing things just for its own glory. It keeps all these offenses. It thinks of itself to be higher of all the other living beings. But all secret becomes evident because our mind will make us do it. When it becomes shameless, it will make us do this. So as a result, factually, it takes over us, it controls us. So your mind is telling you that he's your friend, and that's why it's dictating you what to do. And now, thanks to the internet, there's so much enjoying enjoyance for the mind. So now, what is the way we are taking this internet? What is the way we accept it? Is it an enemy or friend? So it's up to you to decide. It's a hard battle, so not everyone can be on this path, can make a decision to fight. It's harder than the Third World War. This is true. So text number 8. The living entity in the material world carries his different conceptions of life from one body to another, as the air carries aromas. Thus, he takes one kind of body and again quits it to take another. So the air itself is clear, it's understandable, but then it goes through to some area with a lot of garbage, the Republic toilet, for example, bathroom, and of course it carries the aromas of this garbage in toilet. So the same way a living entity enters some physical body, and these conceptions they are layered up onto its soul. And then when you have this bodily conception, but when the wind is blowing above the garden of roses, there are a lot of aromatic flowers there. Just imagine what aromas the air is carrying in this way. Of course, it will be different. So sometimes the air is totally intolerable that we just cannot take it. It stinks. So the air takes up some elements. The air itself is clean, but it can carry some stinky elements. So there are some people that behave the same way. They're so abominable. But we have to understand that the air itself is clean, but it's actually layered. It, it's mixed up with this sinful karma of a person. So that's why we have this not very benevolent impression. But if you clarify this air, so we have all these conditioning systems right now, we know how to do it. So we have to breathe in the clean air. This is like a whole separate branch of engineering. The air inside should be always clean, even in the cities. So if we let this air through all these cleansing facilities, we will understand that there's no more smell in the air, so the air can be clarified. And when this air is taking all these aromas of flowers, blooming flowers, so we feel this heavenly bliss. So sometimes it can be so repetitive, this smell, we will not want to smell it anymore. So the smell of earth is very powerful. So a person can be brought to life with the help of smell. The ammonia. You just take a cotton pad and bring it to a person's nose, he smells it and he wakes up. He gets back to being conscious again. So this aroma, if it's just an earthly smell, brings us back to the earth consciousness, but the spiritual aromas take our consciousness to the spiritual world. You can say it so. So this is the presentation of this life, the way we understand it. So understanding of life takes us to this or another area. Any conceptions that we have can be realized in this material life. So we can't even imagine the variety of things that this material world is giving us. The science fiction writers, they used to write about cell phones, and here we are, we have them. The computers, okay, we have them. Rockets and airplanes, we have everything now that they used to talk about in their science fiction books. So everything that we are imagining, we can realize that in this life. We just have to have this desire. So, matter of fact, we are living here just to get our desires realized. We just have to find the answers to our questions. So back in time, the airplane, they've been layered with some other kind of a wooden material, not metallic. Just imagine how light they were, because they didn't have another material. People, they kept looking for another material like metal. It was quite dangerous. It wasn't so firm, and it could burn because it was made of this thin layer of wood. So then people understood that if it's firm, it will be heavy. But then people have found out duraluminum. It's so light and it's so firm. It's just amazing. It's impossible. So I used to read some Hita, and it is described there, the structure of Vimanas. You can read this stuff. So Vimanas are the spaceships that are described in Vedas, like the way we can construct them to enter some different planetary systems and dimensions. And also the turbulence and radiation is described there. Even if you want to make it not seen, and it's also described the material of what to make it with. You won't believe it. Well, the scientific fiction writers, I think they can take it and use it. And people are inclined to believe science fiction books. If it's more or less scientifically proved, people will believe it and they will discover it. Until they until they don't believe it, they will not discover it. So first of all, you have to start believing, and then you start discovering the soul and the super soul, everything with the help of your belief. So there it says that you have to take these metals and you have to alloy them with the seeds of a pumpkin, something organic with an inorganic thing. Just imagine how you can do it without burning this thing. Just imagine what you will be able to do having such a knowledge. There's a special glass can be manufactured, special device that you can break when you need something, when you need something to find, and then it alloys itself back. So in order to use it, you have to break it. The process of breaking is very peculiar. When you break it, you understand, you come to your special realization of something. Also, there are some means against turbulence and radiation. Well, some scientists, they know about space. So there's too much radiation and high temperatures and some turbulent things and meteors. And there are some animals in there. They can observe us. They can watch us. High developed civilizations. And it says there that you will be able to see these animals without them seeing you. You will be using some special screen. So these vimanas, they were found on some rocks. I mean, the carvings. It's called viman. But on the other hand, if you see the very ancient Vedic temples, thousands of years old, one temple is considered to be more than 1 million years old. So they're also built after the image of a Vimana, and they're considered to be also as the means of transportation, but in a spiritual sense. So when you enter this temple, you have your own concepts. Well, you have your family and relationships. So having these conceptions, you enter this temple and you exit with quite another concept of life. So Bhagavad-gita is the same. This is like Viman. This is a means of transportation. This is consciousness. As we say, there is distance that we have to cover. And when you go to a temple, you get rid of greediness, lust. It's like you've been to Brahmaloka or Kuntaloka, and you can start your life again from scratch. You can find some necessary decisions in order to solve your conflicts. So Vimana is just a means of transportation, not of your physical body, but your consciousness. So what's the point of taking your body to the moon if your consciousness is in the same state? Eating, defending, self-producing. So if you go to the moon with this consciousness, you will not get there. You have to change your concepts. So moon, it says, is a heaven planet. Although it's very cold there, you can't even understand what's going on there. While living here, you will not understand what's going on there. So we understand that plants, they cannot grow in winter because the water gets frozen. But we don't understand what the ether bodies are. These are very cold bodies. Moon is a cold fire, and this is very active. So we don't even understand what the life is on moon. So wind of consciousness, it carries only these impressions. We even have different cultures that have different points of views on this life. The living entity, thus taking another gross body, obtains a certain type of ear, eye, tongue, nose, and sense of touch, which are grouped about the mind. He thus enjoys a particular set of sense objects. So the body is changing, and the way we perceive this life is different. So different types of life have different types of intelligence and feelings. This topic is quite interesting to examine. From this point of view, it's really interesting to examine the biology of these living entities. You understand that there will be so many concepts of life. We all have different understanding of food and, and touch and taste. We're so different. So lately we've talked about cows. So having seen cows eating grass, I was imagining myself as being a cow. So it's eating the grass. I thought to myself, oh my God, how would I be able to eat this grass? So from the medical point of view, I've taken just small portions for the medical purpose, but the cow is easily eating this grass. It's called the widow grass. So it's really bitter. If there's too much of it, it can even cause the epilepsy, but a cow eats it freely, easily, and it doesn't suffer. And the hares, they eat trees bark. So try to cook some dish. You can add some spices, sugar, butter, whatever you want. You will not be able to eat it, but someone is enjoying it. So this is one thing. This is the power of this taste that can just destroy our mind. And there are also some products of livings, and there are also some living beings are living there. So this is the food. There are some living beings living in feces. So they have a whole lot of different tastes, another difficult body. So fish is living in water because it has gills and it's designed to live in water and it's really fast. If you just move your hand, it moves so fast you can't even see. So its body is designed to live there. It can swim in the water even against the current or vertically. So somehow it goes up even inside the waterfall. It's just amazing to observe it. But if we are given these jewels, for example, and this specific body, we will also be able to live there. The amphibian, I remember this Soviet movie when a scientist has transplanted some special jewels into his son's body, and this son, he has learned how to swim in water. It's so he has changed his body. But the point is that when we are changing our bodies in a natural way, so the reason of this change is our mind. It's not like I'm changing my body into fish, but still we have this human mind there. Well, probably, well, just the dolphins, for example, they're very smart. So probably there are some fishmen in this world, a horseman. So probably there are some men like this, or sphinx, for example. So different combinations. It's also said there are some tigers not on this planet with the mind of a human. They're given this mind is given. So it's all possible, but it's not manifested this way on our earth. So we can easily see now that an animal can have a person can have an animal consciousness, but an animal cannot have a human consciousness. But sometimes amazing things happen. Sometimes animals they can have this human consciousness. If you want to exchange your body for a lower level, so you have to degrade your mind, your desires. They have to be lowered. If you want to get a body of a higher quality, you have to elevate your feelings and mind. So the endeavoring transcendentalists who are situated in self-realization can see all this clearly, but those whose minds are not developed and who are not situated in self-realization cannot see what is taking place, even though they may try. So it is said here about smart people, about scientists, they're very influential, but still they won't be able to see the truth, even if they try. They're well organized, even if they use the science, all this examination, very scrupulous examination, but anyway, they won't be able to see it until they understand what the soul is. Just like Prabhupada used to say, they won't be able to create a living being and they will not liberate you from sufferings. They're not capable of it because they cannot see the living being itself. They do not know what its happiness is because they don't understand the nature of a living being. That's why they're taking the wrong path. So they are suggesting people to use all these technologies and cars. It will not bring happiness ever because spiritual things are not material. So we are created to have this active happiness. A soul does not even understand what the tiredness is, a greediness, or something uncomfortable, like an uncomfortable chair. Only here in this material world we understand it. A soul by its nature is blissful. It never gets into tamas or in passion. It's always in a mode of goodness. It has the same spiritual feelings as God has. It feels okay either in fire or in air, in water or on earth, when it's cold or hot. It doesn't even understand these concepts. It doesn't have the concepts of sufferings or enjoyance. The science cannot make a person happy because there inside a physical body there's a soul and it has an absolutely another nature. So an example of fish is given here, taken out of water, and we're trying to gratify its senses. It's never possible until the water gets back to water. There's also a picture I saw in Bengali. It was an old Vedic example. So a fish is lying on the shore. So it's lying on a mattress. There's a pillow. Like everything is created for it to have this very convenient and comfortable conditions. There's an umbrella, like against sun, but still it's dying. Just like rich people, they are leading very luxurious lives, but they are exhausted. So transcendentalists can see it that have attained the spiritual consciousness. So people, even if they try, they cannot reach it with the help of technologies. The splendor of the sun, which dissipates the darkness of this whole world, comes from me. And the splendor of the moon and the splendor of fire are also from me. So how can you see this light? What is fire? What is light? So people, scientists, they're trying to understand what it is, but they're trying to understand what the sun's light is, but still they do not understand anything. And there's so many energies that you cannot even understand, that you cannot even see. We can see night, but there is no night, it doesn't exist. For the definite energies of sun, there is no night. There's no even a concept of night. There's no such notion as night. That's because we're trying to understand what good and bad is. So for us, Earth people, this world is created specifically for us to understand this duality, what good and what bad are. I also have this darkness and light in myself. So this is the analogy. The sun and darkness are helping me to understand these notions. So when I look inside myself, I understand that this darkness and light are inside of me. And the knowledge is like sun. But where is this light coming from? So this is a great analogy. The same source. So this is the super energy, the supreme energy. You can't just say that this is a like an ordinary energy of sun. This is not ordinary. This is not just a fire energy. A fire is always covered with some vapor, of fog. A sun is never covered with any kind of vapor, but it doesn't produce anything like that. You see, the sun does not produce any fume or smolder, but scientists say that, you know what? It will die someday, but the Vedas say that in some time it will be 12 times brighter. So you have to examine it. The science, in this sense, does not know much. It just has these materialistic concepts of it. They've just taken the very first step to understand it. The scientists, they make these universal conclusions. So they're just rascals. They have to admit their imperfection. That's okay if you just examine it, but you have to make conclusions. Do not think of yourself as God. As science is discrediting itself this way. So if these scientists hadn't called themselves to be God, if they had been more humble, they wouldn't have lost their reputation. So they have lost their reputation not because they had discovered something like a nuclear power or something, but that's just because they have considered themselves to be gods. But matter of fact, they've made so many mistakes. So many people were striving for their discoveries, so many discoveries in medicine, and so many people have suffered of it. This is the greatest cult. And still, there are so many people keep suffering. There are so many medicines existent right now on this planet, and people still suffer. This is all greediness. Science serves to greediness. So it's not clean, because the scientists themselves, they're not free of greed and lust. So that's what kind of a picture we have these days. So this dissipating splendor is coming from God. And the splendor of the moon and fire as well. So we don't know how it is being emanated. We don't know many things. If you ask a question how, you don't know how it works. So if you take a match and you don't know the way it has this fire, it's burning, like how is it burning? What is the way? So also we're just trying to understand it, but we only see the fact. There is a source. The fact is there is a source of this world. We cannot see it because we're separated. We are in illusion. So we have to overcome this illusion, and probably then we will be able to see how. Well, anyway, we can ask Krishna, but Krishna, how do you do it? He can do anything. So back in the time of Brahmins, they could set fire without using any matches or fires. They could just use mantras. So if you take these two wooden sticks, for example, and rub them against each other, it will take you a lot of time to do it. So just imagine Brahmins doing the same thing. No, they just use mantras. And here we are, you have this fire. So no matches we needed. So there are some subtle secrets. I enter into each planet, and by my energy, they stay in orbit. I become the moon, and thereby supply the juice of life to all vegetables. So here, one more thing is described. All the planets, they have their own orbit, and no planet is actually not leaving its orbit. So now, dear scientists, explain me this thing. They keep talking about gravitation. There are so many theories right now, anti-theories, and they denounce the theories, but we have to admit we don't know how it's happening. We only can suppose, we only can have some presumptions, but fact is fact. There is this gravitation. Sankarshan it's called in Sanskrit, the gravitation. This is a wise energy. It might have any weight, but you just have to know the nature. If you understand the nature of this gravitation, you can even fly, but only if you have your mind under control. You see so many mysteries of this nature. Text 14. I'm the fire of digestion in the bodies of all living entities, and I join with the air of life, outgoing and ingoing, to digest the four kinds of foodstuff. So fire does not burn without an air. So the digestion fire, how does it work? The air that is coming inside and coming out, outgoing, ingoing. Ayurveda explains that if you eat fire, you have to understand that some part, the third part of your stomach, should be left with air. Otherwise, you will have some stomach aches. So this is the central point of health for a person. Healthy food, healthy nutrition. So one part is given to food, the other one is to water, and the other one is for the air. So the fire of digestion is the criteria to understand how much this person is healthy. So you have to drink water 1 hour before taking food. Sometimes we are overeating and there's not enough air in our stomach. So also it will be very hard to digest this food. All the other organs, they will not be getting enough energy from this digestion. So there will be some problems. So when these organs having some problems, everything is dilapidating in the body. So the body will become the source of disease. Not the source of energy, but the source of disease, the source of suffering. So the fire of digestion is the key word. Krishna says, I am the fire of digestion. We don't actually understand what it is. So the energy of Krishna digests this food inside of us. I am seated in everyone's heart, and from me come remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. By all the Vedas I am to be known. Indeed, I am the compiler of Vedanta. You see, this chapter is called the Yoga of the Supreme Personality. Krishna is everywhere. This is the Krishna's consciousness. That's what it's called. So Vasudeva's consciousness is another name of Krishna's consciousness. So Krishna is everything. But very rarely do we see such a soul that has come to this kind of realization, consciousness. So the comments to the text 15. So living being is fully forgets its previous life, but thanks to the Supreme Lord, it's receiving the possibility to start acting in this life as if to continue what it used to do in the past. We call it intuitively. I like it and I do it just because I want it. Intuition is a subtle form of remembrance, of memory. I just want it unconsciously. I don't even know why. Well, if I like this person, what can I do with it? This is all happening intuitively. Matter of fact, this is your remembrance, memory. It's all coming from Paramatma. You've changed your body, you've forgotten everything, and then we get to know each other. Either we like each other or not. So we do it intuitively, we just remember it intuitively. And then we meet someone for the first time in our life. So we have some different relationships with them. We hate someone, we love someone. So this is all a continuation from our previous lives. So this is the subtle form of memory. Sarvasya means in everything, Chaha means also. That means that I'm also in every living being. So memory, knowledge, and forgetfulness. It says that Krishna remembers everything. He says, I remember everything, but you forget everything. So there's Paramatma. It reminds you. So, and we get it as an intuitive desire to do something. Even our profession. This is all coming intuitively. I just know that I want it, that I like it. So that's why this body starts acting according to his previous karma. There is a witness. So when I die, there is no witness. But in the next life, there will be no witness. Yes, actually, there is a witness. It's located in the heart of every living being. So that's one kind of a picture we have here. So we have to realize that Krishna is inside of my heart. So he is the witness. He's even the witness of my digestion. Even when there is no sun and moon, he's beyond lust, greed, and desires, and anger. He's beyond all these qualities. The more lust, greed, and anger I have, the further I become from God. And I can go to any planets of this universe and I may forget about everything that I've done before. So there are two types of living beings, temporary and eternal. So living being is changing. But the dwellers of the spiritual world, they're always eternal. So temporary, it means that they live here just for some time. But the eternal ones, they live always. In this material world, of course, we are temporary. So there's also the Supreme Soul, the God Himself. So He has entered all these three worlds and supporting them. So don't think that it is difficult for God to support all these three worlds by Himself. So if we think of God to being so materialistic, this bodily concept, till we have it, it's difficult for us to understand it. He does it without any effort, totally effortless. He does not even notice the weight of this universe. For him, this universe is not bigger than a drop of the water on Anantashesha's head. He is limitless. He is spiritual. But as soon as we have this bodily concept, just understand he supports all the worlds. So I've seen this sculpture of Atlant, this Greek mythology, the Hercules. So he's holding the sky. Just imagine how hard it is. The Hercules or someone else is, or Hercules. So they were so tired because you have to hold up the whole world. So it was said to him, please, can you hold it for me? Hercules, so he put his shoulder, then he was said, okay, so now you hold it. I don't want to hold it anymore. I don't want to work like this anymore. It's so difficult to support all this world. But the Hercules, he understood that it's impossible to do that. He doesn't want to do that. It's a very confusing situation. But then he said, I just forgot one thing. I have to go back and then I will return back again. Can you hold this sky for me again? So we have this bodily concept of God, and it's not possible for him to live it. So don't think of him to be tired. He gave us earth, but he forgot to work on it. So, so this is just our funny bodily concepts. This is the kind of a chapter of humor, the humor of Bhagavad-gita. So these are our bodily concepts. So he does everything spontaneously without any effort. So there's no karma for him. There's no such notion for him. He is karma himself. So he supports all this world by himself. He's free, dancing, playing. So being transcendental, I'm the greatest one, temporary and eternal. So that's why in the whole world, in all Vedas, I am praised as the Supreme Personality. So these are the reasons to glorify God. Of course, people, they blame God for all the misdeeds, for all the sufferings, because they forget where all this is coming from. Do you think God is the reason for this everything? Why would he do that? Everything is done, you do it here in this world. God is giving you any possibility, a choice. If you want to do some evil, okay, do evil. You want to do some good things, do good things. Of course, he's telling you that it's better for you to do some good things. But this is your world. You do whatever you want. This is your desire. This is your choice. But only in this spiritual world, you don't have to do anything. There's no evil in there. If you want to be living in the world of evil, you'd better not do that. He advises you not to do it. Leave everything and surrender unto me. Just surrender to me. I have everything. You don't need anything else. Why are you suffering here? Why are you committing so many deeds, doing so many actions? You will never get rid of it. You will never get out. So just surrender to me. If you're serving me, I will protect you. You will be untouched. So it's opened up in Gita. This is the desire of God. He doesn't want to create this world just for you to suffer. So there are many good things in this world. And there's also a world of evilness and shame and non-belief in this world. And everything, this big, this huge machine is rotating here. The living entities are doing all this stuff. Because there is a possibility in this world not to obey God. The one who is sure that I'm the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he knows everything. O son of Bharata, he is devoting his whole life to serving me. It says the firm belief here, the firm belief in God. It all starts from when I understand who I am. I understand that I am not this body. It's difficult. Of course, we are going through so many tribulations. We have some diseases. You just try to remember that at least that I am not this body. Even theoretically, just try to understand that you're not this body. It will help you to overcome some difficult things. So when you have these problems in your mind, it's almost impossible to overcome it. But this memory of yourself as of a soul, it will liberate you from so many things. We can tolerate pain in a different way. Thinking of yourself not being this body will tremendously help you to overcome troubles. You know, this old people right now, they don't want to believe it. This is not what they have lived for. They see everything is dilapidating. They're having so many troubles right now. So that's kind of a society we are creating right now. But if you take a look what the world has become, just imagine a person has sacrificed all his life to create a perfect world, but now when he's dying, he sees all these things going on. Do you think it's easy? You have to remember you're not this body. If you think you're this body, Maya will deceive you. This is a very cruel deception. I am not this body. I am a soul. I'm a particle of God. So that's where it all starts from. I have to understand God with the help of myself. I'm not this body. I'm doing it through myself. So this was already described in the second chapter of Bhagavad-gita, what soul is, and all these facts were given there, proving that there is soul, it exists. So the most sacred part of Vedas have been discovered for you. If you understand it, you will become intelligent and wise. is disclosed by me. Whoever understands this will become wise, and his endeavors will know perfection. So that's how the 15th chapter ends here. So next time we're going to start reading the 16th chapter, and it will be called the divine and demonic natures. So now questions. It says that you cannot criticize other people, but what about Srila Prabhupada? He used to criticize people. So who said that? You can criticize, but just be careful not to offend anyone. So critics may be constructive and useful. If you go to a doctor, he will criticize you. He will tell you like, how come you have this disease? Or the food that you eat is not correct. You have these problems and those problems. You have these disadvantages. So that's how we get to know, we get to tell bad things from good ones. But critics based on the greediness and anger and envy, this is not good. This is an offense. Just like Stalin used to say, if you're not satisfied, criticize. If you criticize, you have to offer something. If you offer something, you have to act. You have to do it. If you do something, you have to be responsible for this. So this is constructive. Otherwise, if you do not do any good things, you just criticize things. This one is good, that one is bad. So this is called parasite. There is just no in this society releasing some toxins, toxic things. This is Thomas. This is the energy of Thomas. These are offenses. So you can criticize people, but constructively, do it in a constructive way. If you do it in a wrong way, I will help you out here. Another question is about the basis of preaching. What is the most important thing to start preaching? For a preacher, the most important thing is his belief. He has to believe in what he is saying. He has to have this firm belief. He has to have this firm belief, Madhyama. If you doubt in what you are saying, you will not convince other people to believe you. So that's why he cannot find any other arguments, because he doesn't believe in what he's saying himself. Dhyama can be a preacher constantly. Full belief means that you understand Krishna effortlessly, without any efforts. It just comes spontaneously, because your feelings are under control. So using just firm belief, you can control your mind and feelings. And that's how this preacher is a good preacher. Of course, you might believe, you might have some belief in God, but if it's not firm, you don't control your feelings. Because your feelings, they might make you doubt. So he's not under, the mind is not under control in this case. So another question. You're talking about all these technologies all the time, and I used to have some thoughts back in the time about living on Earth and traveling in space. And we already have some satellites about Earth. Well, of course, everyone loves traveling in space topic. I used to be told when I was a child, when you grow up, you will go to the space because people will know how to do it. So now remember these two dogs, Bilka and Stroker? They've been to the space, and then Gagarin, the first man ever in space. And then everybody started saying that, yeah, when you grow up, you will go to space, you will travel there. But then the reality, different reality has opened up. There's nothing to do in space, as it turned out. So there's nothing to do there for any living being. Gagarin died there other people died there, some astronauts, they got burnt alive, and then we started thinking about it. Well, this is dangerous. Then supposed device, the moonwalker, was sent to moon. And then there's still this argument. We still do not know for sure if there's some people who have been to this moon. It's all complicated. So our Soviet alpinists, the rock climbers, they've been to the Everest, so they were considered to be insane. So, but they've conquered it. There were a lot of attempts, a lot of death. There's like a graveyard in there, but still somehow someone has conquered the Everest. So they're half half dead, almost losing consciousness, but still they have made it. It was extremely difficult. Indian yogis, they were so amazed, like, why are you doing it in this physical body? You can always do it in your subtle body. So they know everything. Whatever is about Russia, about all this politics, we know everything just sitting here. Lamas can do it very easily. The Buddhist lamas, they know everything in their subtle bodies. They can travel wherever they want. You just go there using your physical body, just like insane people. They were so amazed by the methods we people are using. So there's a book, Simple Travel to Other Planets, with help of yoga. So this is called Bhakti Yoga. So you can take yourself to even the farthest planet, and you can see everything while traveling there. We're not even going to moon. This is too easy. To Goloka Vrindavana. Let's go there without using any spaceships. So that's why we have to examine Vedas, what they are proposing to us. So when we die, there's there's no spaceship or something taking us to some other place. Scrutinize it. So what you think of when dying, there you will go. The subtle body. It's very quick, just the speed of your mind, the speed of your thought. In a split of a second, you can cover millions of miles. In Durvasa Muni, he has covered all this universe in just 1 year, the Earth year. It is said in Vedas, in just one earthly year, he has crossed the whole universe. God, just in the split of a second, he can come down here so fast, just with the blink of an eye. It takes no time. So Durvasa, it took Durvasa a whole year, but God, just a split of a second. So it takes a living being. It takes anybody. So easy traveling to other planets. Why do you build spaceships? So many people die, no perspective in it. So it's deadlocked already. The science is in the deadlock. So what's the mechanism of spiritual aromas, spiritual flavors? How does it work? That's a curious title for a book. It's a very interesting expression. The mechanism of spiritual aromas, of flavors. So this firm belief is just like an aroma. So there are some conditions of mind elevated when, as a matter of fact, you can feel the touch of light and aromas differently. So everything stays the same, but in Krishna's consciousness, everything becomes different. It's like everything the same, but the quality is quite different. So this is the aroma of belief or happiness that colors everything. in this world. All your smells and thoughts. And it doesn't matter if you have some diseases, you're healthy, in which age you are, you just don't notice it. You don't notice any sufferings. You just don't notice them. But technically saying, this is a firm belief. So when you become unconditioned, because you're in the area of spiritual feelings, spiritual thoughts, some kind of a trance of your consciousness. That's why you don't even notice this duality. That's the mechanism, that's how it works. Your consciousness is being brought to a spiritual level, from material to a spiritual level. So there's another question. When people are attached to these modern technologies, they are so proud of them. What can we tell them about it? And also, why are all people striving to go to this space, understanding that our bodies are not capable of living there? So why do we have this desire to go to space? So it sounds to be an insanity for us. Well, this is all intelligent, but this is just a mode of ignorance. Of course, we want to understand how this space is functioning. This is natural for us because we are free inside. That's why we want to get it. We are free in our desires, but the insanity is that we are trying to achieve it using our bodies, our physical body. The method is insane, but the striving itself is quite natural. We have to scrutinize it in order to understand how to fulfill these desires. That's why we have yoga, the realization of all desires. Let's go back to yoga. So we use technologies of scientists to get liberated, and we have the right to do it in order to liberate people from ignorance. And if they use technologies for the senses gratification, they will go straight to hell. But these technologies created by them we can use to liberate souls, internet or cell phones. What are they've created? Some conveniences to save some time. It can be easily used for the spiritual life, not to sit in a bar, but to develop spiritually. So we have to thank them for this, and we have to show them this example, how to use these technologies in order to get liberated, to get the deliverance. Because we don't use these technologies for sensual gratification. We are not materialists. You see, we're using a camcorder right now. We're not performing any concerts right now, something like that. We're just talking about Bhagavad-gita. And we have the full right to that, because we have Krishna's consciousness. But we have no right to criticize materialists and enjoy your technologies. This will be really low. So that's when you have the right to criticize us. We're not just enjoying your technologies, we are using your technologies for our own benefit. So we have to thank them because we can learn Bhagavad Gita. So there's a question. Every one of us chooses his own game in this world, either to be sad or happy. Although I don't remember myself being unhappy in any point of my life. Is it just a matter of choice? Well, yeah, this is called belief. We're just given this belief by our parents, the society, the mass media. We are told you will be happy, not happy. So we used to live like that, awaiting for happiness. That's a guarantee that was given to me by my parents, by my grandparents. We were told that everything would be okay. You just have to wait. You will, you will be married, you will be kids, you will be happy. So it was hidden. The birth, aging, and death. See, the whole world is ahead of you. Institutes, universities, this and that. And we were glad about this illusion. And now we have seen that there's another world, the world of truth. And it's bright, it's not sentimental. It tells us the truth that we have been living in a world of suffers. There's another question. So, am I getting it correctly then? If a disciple does not accept Guru, will he not attain liberation? Well, probably it's not so severe. If a person is really sincere, he believes in God and Krishna, he believes in devotees. If he's already doing some service, I don't see any problems so far. It will come naturally. Sooner or later, this process will connect him with his spiritual master. He's already got some connection with Srila Prabhupada, otherwise he wouldn't be doing it. If he doesn't accept Guru, some principle basis, there's another question. If he takes it negatively, well, of course, he will have some problems. Another question? So lately I have some troubles chanting the holy names, and the further it gets, the more difficult it gets for me. So what should I do? You have to use mantras. Sometimes your mind it gets just insane, unsatisfied, crazy, just like an insane monkey. It can be called as a crazy monkey. It falls into this condition for some times. It can tolerate it for some time, but then just blows up. It becomes crazy. But mantra is more powerful. Keep on practicing. So try to engage yourself with service. Your feelings, they have to be engaged in service according to your nature. Some kind of creativity, some kind of communication, not sinful communication. You have to be engaged in doing something. Good communication, development of friendly relationships with devotees, with good people, where you can say something emotionally using your nature. If your nature is suppressed, your mind will be rampant. The mind is compared to a wild animal. It's very dangerous. A wild and hungry animal. So back in the time, was a long time ago, the scientists they were examining sharks. So the scientists they used to go underwater and floating around sharks, and of course this was dangerous. So what they did, they put one person on a rock, and there were a lot of sharks in the water. It was very dangerous. It was overpopulated with sharks. So one person was just standing on a rock, and he was throwing pieces of dead animals into the water. Of course, the sharks were getting together, and he was doing it rhythmically. So one, two, and three, and four, and five. So he was doing an account. And then in 5 seconds, he was throwing it. So the sharks, they organized in a circle. So they were doing it one by one. They got themselves accustomed to this rhythm. Every 5 seconds, they were getting this piece of animal. The whole circle of sharks. So this person on the rock, he was very experienced. He did it many times. So there are some other sharks coming inside, and the circle was getting bigger. He had to make sure that every shark gets its piece. And at the same time, there were two other scientists. They were floating in water and were taking videos of the sharks. So while they were engaged in eating the sharks, they were not dangerous. So this is our mind. And the narrator commenting all that was going on. So they're so agitated by the lust right now. If you do it not rhythmically, they will attack the people. So you have to do it in the same with the same tempo. So the same mind. Once the mind is not satisfied, it will become agitated, irritated. So we'll start saying like, do this and do that, stop doing this and do that. I told you. So see, it's happening when the mind is not satisfied. So you have to practice Hare Krishna Mahamantra and practice it attentively so that your mind gets this food. If the mind is not engaged in it, it will be hungry. Day and night, it will drive you insane. So the point is very simple. If you chant these rounds, you have to be attentive so that your mind gets this food. And when the shark is that big, it's fat, you can just sit in it, you can, clap it. It's not dangerous because it's not interested in food. It has had enough of food. So give enough of food to tiger. You can just approach and clap him in a friendly way. It will not eat you. So if you chant attentively, it will be the food for your mind. If you do it not attentively, you will get bored of it and you will get back to Maya, where the essential joy is. Another question. Is it good or bad to become a pure devotee sometime? You see, you already have some hope, so I think you already have some belief. So first comes the belief and then hope. So there's no belief without hope. There's only love that is left. You're getting closer. So another question. Understanding the real value of Srila Prabhupada's books, there's no taste. I still don't have it. So the point is that you have to get it as a necessity. You have to read books necessarily. Well, probably you will have no taste ever for good things, but the point is that you have to accustom yourself to having a good taste. You just read, just keep on reading. If you have power of will, the intelligence, use it, use your intelligence. And when you feel the taste, you will like it, of course. What helps us to develop a good taste? Associating with devotees, the ones that have the spiritual taste. Another question. I understand that following my mind is very dangerous and it will lead me to sufferings. So you don't follow your mind, but not until the very end. You just have a little short stroll with it, but then do not go too far. So the mind should keep you away from it. Just because you chant rounds, you read Bhagavad-gita, your wisdom will stop you. So sometimes there's an internal, there's some feelings that I have empty inside. So what is it? So apathy, and this is tamas. When you feel empty inside, this is tamas. Nothing There's nothing bad in it. It will go away sooner or later. Rajas and then sattva, and then sattva into rajas, rajas into tamas. I mean, this is all rotating. It's going to be rotating forever. Just don't pay attention to that. Just keep on, just hold on to Krishna. If my mind is still insane, can you teach me how to engage myself in a devotional service? So, for example, you have to get married in time. So, in the first verse of Bhagavatam, it says, when there's a right age, you have to use it. You have to get married. So, usually it happens to us that when there's already a perfect timing for getting married, but you don't do it. So, we do not engage ourselves in any service. Of course, it will be difficult for us to keep on living like that. So, you have to live this natural life. So in childhood, you have to learn, you have to study. It engages us in the correct manner. After that, there's the right age for marriage. Then we have to have kids. In 25 years, when you are 25, you have to be already like a solid person. But you see what we do right now in the 50-year-olds people, they haven't actually reached anything important yet. So far, you just have to read Bhagavad-gita, save yourself and your relatives. So how do I become independent of other people? And what's the difference between happiness in tamas and rajas? Well, people are already thinking about you anyway. If you don't do anything purposeful in this life, of course they will be thinking of you. You know, as we say, no fish, no meat, nothing important, nothing serious. If you do something really great, but not successfully, people will call you like a loser. Or he has tried doing something, but he hasn't succeeded. If you do something good successfully, people will start envy you. You know, in any way, there will be no good of it. In the first case, you just do nothing. In the second case, you're a loser. In the second one, people will be envying you. From the materialistic point of view, that's how it works. The devotees, they will act in another way. If you are being sincere, you just keep on going. If you tried and it didn't work, okay, that's a good sign. He's already tried. He's got some purpose. He's decisive and just keep on going. And if you've tried doing something and you've succeeded, of course you'll be called a pure devotee. Among devotees, everything will be good. Don't think about the rest of the people. They will never think of yourself any good things. So another question. So if you commit one sin, it will actually engage some other sins, following sins. Is it true? Yes, of course. If you eat too much, overeating, does he overeat prasadam? I think in the beginning it's not so dangerous, but later on you have to control your feelings. So how do I preach to atheists, scientists that believe in no God? How do I preach to them? So I agree with the notion that religion is the opium for the people. So you have to preach a science to a scientist, a science of knowing Krishna. So evolution of soul, of spirit, the evolution of spirit exists. If he's a scientist, he has to just observe. You cannot prove evolution. It cannot be proved. The evolution of bodies, it can be proved. So far, it's just not scientifically proved. But if he's a scientist, he has to know it. I used to talk to all the scientists, and they all told me that this is just a theory and it stays a theory. And they said that most of them, they don't believe Darwin's theory. So I asked them, why do you teach it in universities? And they told me that there is no other theory, that's why we teach it in universities. So all the scientists, they already, like more and more of them, they believe that this is just a theory, this Darwin's theory. So there's also a devolution and a lot of stages of evolution and degradation. If you tell it to a scientist, do you think he won't believe it? Just take one, the humankind, you will realize so many things. Just find a logical argument. If he's a scientist, you can have this scientific and wise dialogue. If he's a fanatic, he's silly and he's stubborn, of course you will have some problems, but if this person is able to think, to contemplate, this will be quite interesting to talk to him. Quite a curious experience. There are some rascals that have come across. He has read a lot, he has heard a lot, he always has his own opinion on everything, but he turned out to be a rascal. So do not associate with these people. These people should be adequate, good people, and they're thinking, they're able of thinking. So only that's when they can understand that there's something else. So we used to meet some scientists from a laboratory. They were also talking about the evolution of soul, and they also told us, no, this is all a myth, this is all not true. This was the beginning of 90s. And when I started reading Mahabharata to them, gunas were explained, and the reasons of death, the subtle reasons. Well, they said, well, we don't have this science so far. We haven't examined, we haven't studied this sphere yet. They were quite intelligent. They weren't so stubborn. They realized that there's another science, more subtle, the one that we still don't understand, we don't know. So I was just citing Mahabharata to them, and they've started contemplating about it because they're just people, first of all, not just scientists. So it's hard to follow these principles. And the further I go, the more difficult it is for me to follow these principles. So Prabhupada usually used to stand up when he heard that I've taken all these vows, but I'm still young and I couldn't understand back then what I was promising, and I didn't know it would be so difficult to control my feelings. So Prabhupada used to just get up on his feet. I gave you the sacred name, the holy name. Ask Krishna. That's how you get this strength, this intelligence. So he said it to the one who asked the question. There was another example. So there was a person that has already started violating principles. You see, he said, I was still so young when I was giving all these promises. So then Prabhupada told him, so why have you promised? This is very important. So you have to shake yourself up. If you violate your vows, you will have a lot of problems. Krishna will have no problems, but if you even violate something, you have to continue following your vows. Because you've taken this vow in front of a God's face, in front of God. If you haven't given these vows so far, there's no such high level for that, but still, you can violate it. If there's an ocean of knowledge, you will be able to do anything. This knowledge is growing. It's not being exhausted. It's a growing Shakti, not a dilapidating one. So just, of course, you're going through some difficulties and tribulation, but you just have to keep going. Do not be weak. If you've taken these vows, do not be weak. Do not contradict them, even if it's difficult for you. You have this full responsibility of your shoulders. There's another question. How do you find myself? How do I understand how to be happier? How do I understand how to make other people happy? Well, if you're happy, you can make other people happy. If you're happy yourself, you have this happiness inside of you, you have the skills. You have the skills to make other people happy. What makes you happy right now? Well, to some extent. For example, you're happy because you have prasadam or mantras that you can chant and it helps you to deliver your mind from problems. You're happy just because you have a spiritual master. Why are you not happy? So preach this happiness. Just tell everyone else how good it is to associate with devotees. It's good to offer food to God, to cook food, to spread this happiness. So there's another question. So my husband got sick with a lung disease. So what should I do? So the first thing that's going to happen is the fear. When we have some troubles with our health, there are some serious things that happen, and cancer is something that it's really hard to get rid of. So as a rule, people die because of cancer. But I have one friend that she got healed with the help of chemotherapy, and my mother, she also had a cancer. She's going to turn 88 soon. She's still alive and she got cured of cancer. And yes, if there's a lung cancer, it's really difficult to overcome, but you just have to look at your relationships. So secondly, you have to ask God. You have to look for some answers intensively. What to do. Always remember that you have some duty in front of this person, and he is also responsible for something in front of you. So this will give you some strength, and it doesn't matter how it will end up. Dharma is entering you right now. Dharma, your duty. Yeah, the person might be done, but you have to follow your duty until the very end. So the strength of duty, it should be with you. Everyone will die, but so what can you say? I'm gonna die, every one of us will die. So we have to know it's designed for every person. A death will come for you. But dharma, you have to fulfill your dharma. Until you're alive, fulfill your dharma. You have to preach until this person is alive. You have to take care of this body, of him. So this is the way of dharma. And in this you have to remember that everything is in the hands of God. Anything can happen. We're all just the toys in the God's hands. So when you overcome the first stage, fear, it will happen naturally. And of course, there will be some very valuable things. If you're in Krishna's consciousness, you will have some really valuable realizations, and you will be very grateful to God for those. So there's another question to Guru Maharaj. You heard something over the radio back in town. Can you tell us what it was? So I used to listen to Voice of America. I was in 10th grade. We were doing some silly things because we were children. So, so the Voice of America, it was on the radio, but the Soviet, the Soviet Union was trying to break it. So we were eager to listen to all these foreign songs. So the Soviet songs, we were not interested in them. They were just, copying the Western songs. So we were interested. We had this passion to rock music, and Demis Roussos, a singer, popular singer. So he was very popular. We didn't have any recordings back then. So we were popular Western singers. So just by listening to Voice of America, we're trying to find this frequency, the radio frequency. So we got this frequency. It was only once that I've heard to this station. So Demis Roussos. So there was an interview in Russian language, of course. There was like an anime radio station. Animes. So the host is asking Demis Roussos. So there's an opinion, German, that you used to be an Alexander the Great in your previous life, because his voice, Demis Roussos' voice, it was so great. And then when I heard this, the previous life, like, what are you talking about? Demis Roussos, the previous life? So I got so confused. Like, well, he's a wise person, he's an intelligent person. He's a singer, he's an idol. Like, how can he believe in this nonsense? So Demis Roussos said, it might be, I just don't remember it very well. So I just thought to myself, like, what are they talking about in this Western country? He's not even denying it. So that's how I got to learn about reincarnation back then. From Demis Roussos, he used to be my Shiksha guru, my first Shiksha guru, and that host as well. Two Shiksha gurus at the same time. So that's kind of a funny story that I had. Can a person preach just by having read some books of Srila Prabhupada? Can he start preaching? Of course he can. This is natural. If he knows already something, how can he keep this inside? You just preach whatever you want. Of course, if you don't know everything, you will be deadlocked very easily. And what about this? Well, you have to say, I don't know it yet, but I keep on reading. And then you come the next time to this person and say, oh, okay, I've got this information. Now, so here's the answer. And then this person will think that every time he goes somewhere for the answers, he will ask you, like, where are you going to? Where do you go to usually to get your answers from? Just be sincere. If you don't know something, just tell them that you don't know, but you will learn. And then you will come back. So there's another question. So this transfer from between these different modes, what does it depend on? So the mode of passion to the mode of from one mode to another one. Either you will go to austerity to perform some austerities. You'll think to yourself, maybe I should have some break, for example. Maybe I should take a break from these austerities. So that's what you're thinking of. So tamas and sattva, they're always influencing you. So it's only up to you to make a decision, to make a choice. In order to reach rajas, you have to work. This is an effort, extraordinary effort, but the fruits are so minimal. If you reach rajas, now you're told that, okay, now you have to perform some austerities. You think to yourself, oh my God, I've done so many things in my life. I don't have any fruits, but I have to perform austerities. What about the fruits? What about the enjoyment? So that's what kind of a dilemma you will have. So you will regulate your life in order, if you want to elevate to the sattva guna, this is your whole life. This is not a fragment of sattva. This is the regulation of these gunas. Sattva is a regulation. Rajas regulates your lust. Sattva regulates the sense of your life. So you have to both relax and work under the influence of sattva guna. Rajas has to be controlled by sattva. You have to meditate in sattva as well. Sattva is the state of mind. This is a definite quality, a set of mind. So you have to both relax and work in this Krishna's consciousness. The austerities in Sattva Guna means that there are some regulative principles and chanting Mahamantra, 16 rounds. Another question. If matter and intelligence is the same, how can I not get confused in it? So these games of minds, are they just because of hunger? The mind will only stop at the absolute truth until it's overwhelmed by the absolute truth. It will keep on looking for something else, some arguments. So what's happening? I hear, well, for example, I choose what to hear. There are some examples of psychology. There are different levels of hearing. I listen, for example, to Bhagavad-gita, but I choose what to listen to. So I go to doctor, I go to psychologist. So I went to market one day and I had a conflict, for example, and I had a conflict, so now I have to understand what to do. Psychologist is listening to you and he asks you, so what would the cost of potatoes at that market? So you're reading Bhagavad Gita, for example, and then you spot something very interesting, like, oh, you stop and you start contemplating it. But your mind is telling you, keep on going, keep on reading. And you think to yourself, oh, this is very interesting information. So then I think to myself, probably I used to use it somehow. I used to use this knowledge somehow, this material world. But sattva tells you have to keep on going. Rajas tell you, okay, you have to stop. There's enough. Just stop here. You have to enjoy it now. Sattva tells you keep on reading. You have to chant more. You have to read more. Just keep on going. Don't stop. It's always like that. Until these gunas are rotating, just have to understand you have to keep on going. You have some problems, keep on going. Everything's okay, keep on going. Nothing's changing. This is sattva. So this is it for today. Jai.